A random search for Medicare documents led me to the truth my parents hid for decades. I wasn't their son. At least, not by blood. But that was just the beginning. One piece of paper flipped my entire identity upside down. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor of my parents' attic, elbow-deep in old cardboard boxes that smelled like dust and pine insulation. The plan was simple. I was helping Mom dig up some paperwork for her Medicare stuff, just trying to be the good son for once. She had complained about her knees and asked if I could climb up there instead. So I figured, sure. I owed her a few favors anyway. I was not expecting to find anything interesting. Just old tax files, warranties from dead appliances, maybe some childhood art buried in a manila envelope. Instead, I pulled out a slim folder labeled Daniel, important. That was me, Daniel Cooper. Born and raised in Central Illinois. Only child of Linda and Greg Cooper. I had seen my birth certificate before, years ago when I got my learner's permit. Never gave it much thought. But for some reason, I opened the folder anyway. There it was. My full name in bold at the top, typed neatly. Date of birth. Place of birth. But something felt off. The parents listed? Margaret and Douglas Merrill. I read the names again. Then a third time. I sat there for a long moment, the silence of the attic pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. My brain was trying to make excuses. Maybe it was a mistake. A cousin with the same name. Some old adoption papers for a family friend. But none of it added up. There were hospital records, a discharge form, even a photo of a baby, my baby photo, but with Baby Merrill scrawled on the back in unfamiliar handwriting. My throat went dry. I flipped the page. An adoption certificate. My name was printed in capital letters. Adoptive parents, Gregory and Linda Cooper. The attic spun for a second. My fingers went numb. I must have reread the paper 20 times, hoping that maybe I had misunderstood. But it was all there, clear as day. I had been adopted, and no one had ever told me. Not when I was a kid. Not during any of the rough teenage years. Not even when I moved out and started my own life. I was 33 years old and only now finding out that the people I called Mom and Dad were not the ones who had brought me into the world. I did not even know how to breathe. It felt like the floor underneath me had shifted, like my entire life had been one long, elaborate performance. And I had not even known I was acting. I heard Mom's voice echo from downstairs, casual and distracted. She was asking if I had found anything yet. I did not answer. My hand was shaking, still clutching that paper like it might vanish if I blinked. And right then, a thought crept into my mind, sharper than anything I had ever felt. Why did they lie to me? I did not have an answer. But I knew I was going to find one. I did not say anything when I came back down. I tucked the folder under my sweatshirt and told Mom I could not find what she was looking for. She barely looked up from her laptop, just nodded and said she would check herself later. I stood there for a second, watching her. This woman who had kissed my scraped knees, yelled at me to clean my room, hugged me when I did not make varsity. She looked the same. But everything about her felt different now. I drove home with the heat blasting, trying to drown out the chaos in my head. The folder sat on the passenger seat like a live grenade. I kept glancing at it at every red light, half expecting it to sprout arms and point at me, yelling, "You are not who you think you are." When I got home, I poured myself a glass of water, sat down at the kitchen table, and opened it again. The papers felt heavier now. I studied the names Margaret and Douglas Merrill. No middle names. No locations other than Cook County Hospital. That was in Chicago, a good 3 hours north of where I grew up. So not only was I adopted, I was born in an entirely different part of the state. There was no letter, no explanation. Just legal language and faded ink. My first instinct was to confront them. Just storm back over and demand answers. But something held me back. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe I already knew, deep down, that this was not going to be a clean conversation. Instead, I spent the next hour staring at my own reflection in the microwave door, trying to see something, anything, that looked unfamiliar. But it was still me. Brown hair. Crooked front tooth. That scar on my chin from when I tripped over a sprinkler head in 2nd grade. I was still Daniel Cooper. Wasn't I? Then again, maybe not. It was like someone had replaced the foundation of my house without telling me. Everything still looked the same, but I could feel the cracks spreading under my feet. By evening, I could not take it anymore. I texted Dad. "Can we talk? Just us. Tonight?" He wrote back quick. "Sure. Everything okay?" Not even close, I wanted to say. But all I typed was, "I'll explain when I get there." The ride to their place felt like I was heading to court. My heart would not slow down. My palms were sweating so bad I had to wipe them on my jeans at every stoplight. When Dad opened the door, he looked surprised. A little worried, too. "Hey, buddy," he said. "Come in. You look like hell." I walked straight to the living room, sat on the edge of the couch, and pulled the folder out from my jacket. No small talk. No warm-up. I placed the adoption certificate on the coffee table. He stared at it, blinked once, twice, then leaned back like I had just punched him in the chest. He did not ask where I found it. He did not ask why I brought it. He just said 4 words I will never forget. "So, you know now." He said it like I had stumbled into a room I was never meant to find. Like it was a secret they had buried so deep, they thought time would just seal it shut forever. I waited for him to say more. For something, anything, to make it make sense. But he just sat there, rubbing his hands together, staring at the carpet like it had all the answers. Finally, I asked the question that had been clawing at my throat since the attic. "Why did you never tell me?" He looked up, and for the first time in my life, I saw guilt written all over his face. Not frustration. Not disappointment. Actual guilt. "It was not supposed to go this way," he said. I wanted to scream. What did that even mean? What way? The truth slipping out because someone mislabeled a box? He went on, voice low and shaky. "We adopted you when you were 6 weeks old. It was closed. No contact. Margaret was young, barely 17. Her parents wanted it quiet. We were on a waiting list. Been trying for years, but nothing ever worked out. And then, there you were." He paused. "You were perfect. And we were scared. Scared if we told you, maybe you would feel like you didn't belong. Or worse, that you'd leave." Those words hit me harder than I expected. Because part of me understood it. The fear. The instinct to protect what you love, even if it meant lying to keep it safe. But it still did not erase the anger building inside me. "You had 33 years, I said. "You had thousands of chances to tell me the truth. And instead, I found it in a dusty box next to an old toaster manual." He winced, but I did not hold back. "You told me I was born in Springfield. That the hospital sent Mom home with a flower blanket. That you cut the cord." He nodded slowly. "We did not want you to feel different. We wanted you to feel ours." "I was yours," I snapped. Until today, I had no reason to think I wasn't. And that was the truth of it. The betrayal was not just in the lie, it was in the love that now felt wrapped in conditions. All those childhood memories, birthday parties, bedtime stories, they still happened. But now, they had a shadow hanging over them. A secret, hiding in plain sight. Dad sat back, eyes glassy. "We were going to tell you. Eventually. But then years went by. And the longer we waited, the harder it got," I finished for him. He nodded. We sat there in silence for a while. The old clock in the hallway ticked louder than ever. Then I asked the next question. "Do you know anything about them? My birth parents?" He hesitated, then slowly stood up and walked to the bookshelf. From behind a stack of photo albums, he pulled out a smaller envelope. "We kept this in case you ever wanted to know." He handed it to me, and my hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were 2 things, a handwritten note, yellowed with age, and a photocopy of a medical form. I read the name at the top of the letter. Margaret Merrill. And the very last line? "Tell him I'm sorry." That was when I knew, whatever came next, this story was far from over. I sat alone in my car outside their house for almost an hour. The letter from Margaret Merrill was folded neatly in my jacket pocket, like it might burn a hole through the fabric if I let it. It was barely a paragraph long, written in careful cursive on lined paper that looked like it had come from a high school notebook. No date. No return address. Just a short message from someone who gave me life and then disappeared like a ghost. "I hope you grow up happy. I hope you are loved. I want to say I'm sorry. I wish things could be different." That was it. No explanation. No reason why she gave me up. Just hope and apology. I read it again and again until the words blurred. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes, memories from my childhood, now twisted by doubt. My first birthday party. Was that really my first? My mom holding me after I fell off my bike. Did she think of my birth mother when she did that? What haunted me most was the realization that I had no idea who I was before 6 weeks old. That morning, I made coffee, skipped breakfast, and sat down at my laptop. I typed in Margaret Merrill, Cook County, Illinois, and hit enter. At first, nothing useful came up. An obituary for a woman in her 80s. A LinkedIn profile for a college student in California. A bunch of white pages listings, none of which seemed promising. But then I added Douglas Merrill and adoption. That changed everything. An article popped up. A local newspaper story from 1990 about a teenage couple in Chicago who had placed a child for adoption. It was short, just a few quotes. But there it was. Margaret Merrill, 17, and Douglas Merrill, 19, made the difficult decision after discovering the pregnancy too late for alternatives and facing pressure from their families. My chest tightened. There was even a photo, black and white, grainy, but clearly them. Margaret looked tired, pale, with long dark hair tied back in a messy ponytail. Douglas stood beside her, awkward in a baggy denim jacket, looking away from the camera. I stared at the image until the screen dimmed. Then I searched for them individually. Douglas had passed away. A car accident in 1998. Single vehicle, icy roads. No survivors. But Margaret, she was alive. I found a public records match for a Margaret Merrill, now Margaret Evans, living in Elgin, Illinois. Less than 2 hours from me. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. She had been right there. All my life, just 2 hours away. And suddenly, I was standing at the edge of a cliff I had never known existed. I could reach out. I could find her. But then what? What if she did not want to hear from me? What if she had moved on? Had a new family? A new life where I was just a footnote, a mistake she had buried long ago? Still, the decision had already rooted itself deep in me. I had to know. I had to see her. Even if it blew everything apart. I waited 3 days before doing anything. 3 days of pacing my apartment, of typing out messages to Margaret I never sent, of hovering over the call button on a number I found in some outdated online directory. I even drove past Elgin once, just to see what kind of place it was. A small city, nothing fancy. The kind of town with too many churches and not enough good coffee. On the 4th day, I made a decision. I was not going to send a letter. Not going to call. I needed to see her with my own eyes. I told myself I would just drive by. Nothing more. The address I found was a one-story ranch house on a quiet street lined with trimmed hedges and mailboxes shaped like little barns. There was a red SUV in the driveway. Wind chimes on the porch. A welcome friends sign by the front door. It all looked so normal. I sat in my car across the street, engine running, fingers tapping the steering wheel. Watching. After 15 minutes, the door opened. A woman stepped out with a basket of laundry. She was older than I expected, but I recognized her immediately. The nose, the eyes, those were mine. She had to be in her early 50s, maybe younger. Her hair was shorter now, with streaks of silver. But it was her. Margaret Merrill, now Margaret Evans. I did not know how long I sat there, heart hammering in my throat, watching her hang shirts on a line. Then a man stepped out, balding, broad-shouldered, maybe mid-50s. He kissed her cheek, said something that made her laugh, and disappeared back inside. Her husband, probably. That was the first punch. She had a life. A real one. A home. Maybe kids. Maybe grandkids, for all I knew. And I was nowhere in it. I could not get out of the car. I could not bring myself to knock. My courage had cracked into a million pieces. So I drove away, windows down, trying to breathe. I pulled over in a strip mall parking lot and sat there, staring at the pavement. It was not just about her anymore. It was about me. Who I was. Where I came from. All my life, I thought I had roots. I thought I knew the soil I had grown from. But now, even that felt like a lie. I had parents who raised me, yes. But I also had a mother who gave me away. A man who never lived long enough to meet me. A city I was born in but had never really seen. And somewhere in that mess was the truth I needed. That night, I got home and opened my laptop again. I was not done. I was going to find every missing piece, no matter what it cost me. Because I needed to know who I really was. Even if it hurt. Even if it changed everything. The next few weeks were a blur of obsession. I could not focus at work. I stopped answering texts. My fridge stayed empty because every time I went to the grocery store, I ended up parked outside in the lot, staring into space. My entire mind was stuck in rewind and fast forward at the same time. 1 minute I was a kid eating grilled cheese in my parents' kitchen. The next I was imagining my birth mother watching cartoons with a different child on her lap, one she kept. I went back through the envelope Dad gave me. There was not much else. A copy of my medical records, mostly blank. A note from the adoption agency confirming my placement. But then I noticed a small corner of folded paper stuck inside the sleeve. It was a copy of a birth announcement. Just a few lines. Margaret and Douglas Merrill announced the birth of a baby boy, born January 7, 1990, Cook County Hospital. A name was written in the margin, in faded pencil, Lucas. I froze. Lucas? I said it out loud, just to hear how it sounded. Not Daniel. Lucas. It hit me like a truck. That had been my name, even if only for a few days or weeks. That was what she had called me. That was what she wrote down in some nurse's arms when they asked her what to label the tiny wristband. Lucas. I never knew how much power a name had until I heard one that used to be mine. It messed me up. I could not stop saying it in my head. And then came the second twist. One night, while digging through old newspapers online, I came across an article about a local high school in Elgin. A student had won a scholarship for photography. His name? Eli Evans. The last name matched Margaret's married name, and the age lined up 17. There was even a photo. A sharp-eyed kid with curly brown hair and a crooked smile that looked painfully familiar. Something inside me twisted hard. I zoomed in. Looked again. He looked like me. No, he looked like what I might have looked like if I had grown up in a different life. That was the second punch to the gut. She had another son. A kid she kept. I could not stop staring at the photo. My chest felt tight. My stomach turned cold. So that was it. She did not stay childless. She just chose a different child. And now I was not just the kid who got left behind. I was the one who got replaced. That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the name Lucas echoing in my skull, bouncing around like it still belonged to me. And all I could think was, what made him worth staying for? I did something reckless the next day. I drove back to Elgin with no real plan. Just rage, confusion, and that old envelope riding shotgun again like it might talk some sense into me. I parked a block away from the house and sat there for nearly 30 minutes, staring at the porch swing that swayed gently in the wind, like it had no idea it belonged to a family that once gave me away. Then the door opened. It was him, Eli Evans. Same curly hair, a little older now than in the photo, maybe college age. He stepped out holding a camera bag and a water bottle, earbuds in, completely unaware of the firestorm sitting just across the street. I watched him climb into a dinnered old Subaru and pull away. He looked like any other normal kid, just living his life. And here I was, losing mine. Something in me snapped. I turned the car off, walked across the street, and rang the bell. The door opened faster than I expected. And there she was, Margaret. Her eyes widened the moment she saw me. No hesitation, no confusion. She knew. She put a hand to her chest and whispered, Lucas. Hearing that name, out loud, from her lips, sent a tremor straight through me. It hit so hard I almost lost my footing. I go by Daniel now, I said. My voice was dry, cold, but I guess you would not know that. She opened the screen door slowly, tears already welling in her eyes. I always hoped. Why? I cut her off. Why did you give me up? And why keep him? I motioned behind her, toward the driveway where Eli had just been. That question hung in the air like smoke after a firework, still hot, still burning. Margaret took a breath, then another. She looked older now, softer, but the pain on her face was raw and real. You were my first, she said. I was 17. Doug was all I had. My parents threatened to cut me off, said they would disown me. I was scared. I was stupid. They made me believe I had no choice. But you had another kid, I snapped. And you kept him. She winced. Years later, after Doug died, after I grew up, after I spent a decade wondering if I had made the biggest mistake of my life, I did not know what I wanted from her. Anger? Regret? A breakdown on the porch? All I felt was numb. I just wanted to see you, I said. To know if I was real to you, or just some ghost you erased. She stepped out onto the porch, her voice shaking. You were never a ghost. You were my first son. My hardest goodbye. I think about you every day. Every single day. It should have made me feel better. It didn't. I looked at her, really looked. And all I could think was how much of my life had passed without her. Every birthday. Every scraped knee. Every Christmas morning. I took a step back. I have to go, I said. She called after me once, Lucas, but I did not turn around. Because I was not that person anymore. And maybe I never was. I drove home in silence. No music. No podcasts. Just the hum of the road and the pounding in my head. When I got back to my apartment, I sat in the dark for a while. The kind of darkness that feels earned. Heavy. I thought I would feel something after seeing her. Closure maybe. Some kind of peace. But it was worse than before. I had answers now, but they did not fix anything. I still felt like I was stuck between two lives. One I had lived, and one I had never even gotten the chance to try. Later that night, I called my dad. Greg. He picked up on the second ring, sounding tired, but relieved to hear from me. I saw her, I said, not even bothering with a hello. There was a pause. Are you okay? No, I said, but I'm not falling apart either. He was quiet again, then said something that caught me off guard. She gave you life, but we got the honor of raising you. It hit me harder than I expected. I had been so caught up in the betrayal that I had not really stopped to think about what I still had. Greg and Linda were not perfect. They had lied, sure, but they had also loved me. Every scraped me, every school play, every Sunday morning pancake breakfast. They were the ones who stayed. I stared at an old photo on my bookshelf. Me at 8, holding a lopsided science fair trophy, Dad with his arm around me, grinning like I had just won the Nobel Prize. That was real. No lie could take that away. The next morning, I did something I had not done in weeks. I made breakfast. I shaved. I went for a walk around the neighborhood, letting the breeze sting my face and clear the fog in my head. When I got home, I opened my laptop and searched for a therapist, because I knew this was not something I could untangle on my own. That afternoon, I got a message. It was from Eli. Hey, not sure how to start this. My mom told me you stopped by. I'd really like to talk. Just reading it made my stomach twist. I did not reply right away. I was not sure if I wanted to meet him. I did not know what I would say. Hi, I'm the brother you never knew about? The version of your life that got erased? But deep down, I knew I would say yes. Not for him. For me. Because I was done running from the cracks in my past. If I wanted to build something new, I had to face everything I came from, both families, both truths. Even if it shattered me along the way. We met at a coffee shop just outside of town. Neutral ground. Not his turf. Not mine. Eli showed up right on time, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes darting around like he was not sure if I would actually be there. When he spotted me, he gave a cautious wave and sat down across from me. Same nervous energy I had. Same crooked smile. Same eyes. It was unsettling, like meeting a version of myself that had taken a different turn somewhere back in 1990. Neither of us spoke at first. Just awkward sips of coffee and the sound of distant espresso machines. Then he said, So, you're my brother? I nodded. Yeah. Half, technically. But yeah. He leaned back and let out a low whistle. This is the wildest thing that's ever happened to me, he said. I cracked a small smile. Same. He asked questions. I answered some. Dodged others. He wanted to know what I was like as a kid, what my parents were like, the ones who raised me. I could tell he was trying to be careful. Not too invasive. Not too emotional. But it was all there under the surface. I had no idea, he said. She never told me she had another kid. That stung a little. But I guess I understood. How do you bring something like that up over cereal? I asked him about her. What she was like growing up. How she was as a mom. He told me about her baking, her obsession with old vinyl records, how she cried during every Pixar movie. It felt strange. Like I was learning about a person I had already met, but only through shadows. You know, he said, eyes downcast, she always seemed sad around January. Never said why. I nodded slowly. My birthday's in January. His eyes lifted. He got it. We sat there for a while longer. Just two strangers with shared blood, trying to make sense of a past we never knew we shared. Before we left, he said something I did not expect. I don't want to force anything, but if you ever want to hang out again, I'd be cool with that. I did not answer right away, but I felt something in my chest shift. A weight moving. Not gone, but lighter. I'd like that, I said. And I meant it. As I walked to my car, the wind picked up. The sky was gray, like it was holding something back. But for the first time in weeks, I did not feel like I was sinking. For the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could climb out of this and start writing my own version of the story. Not the one that was handed to me. The one I chose. A few weeks later, I stood on the porch of my childhood home, holding a manila envelope in one hand and my keys in the other. It was quiet. The wind stirred the bare trees along the driveway. Inside, I could hear faint laughter, my mom, probably watching some rerun. For the first time since all this started, I felt steady. I stepped in, set the envelope on the kitchen table, and called out, Mom? Dad? Can we talk? They both came into the kitchen, looking unsure. Mom wiped her hands on a dish towel like she had been waiting for this conversation since the day I was born. I met her, I said simply. And him. Eli. Her mouth parted slightly. Dad put a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. But I was not there to make them squirm. I was past that now. I just want you both to know, I continued, I am not angry anymore. Hurt? Yeah. Confused? Definitely. But I know you did what you thought was right. And I also know you never stopped loving me. Mom's eyes filled fast, and Dad looked like he had something in his throat he could not quite swallow. I pulled out a photo from the envelope and slid it across the table. It was me and Eli, sitting outside that coffee shop. Both of us grinning awkwardly, like neither one of us knew how to pose for something that big. I do not know what the future looks like, I said, but I am going to figure it out. And I want you to be part of it. Tears spilled down Mom's cheeks as she reached for my hand. Dad gave a slow, firm nod, his jaw tight with unspoken relief. That night, I went home and stood in front of the bathroom mirror. I stared at my reflection. Same nose, same scar on my chin. But something had shifted in my eyes. I was not Daniel Cooper. I was not Lucas Merrill. I was both. I was the boy who had two mothers, one who raised me and one who let me go. I was the man shaped by love, lies, silence, and rediscovery. The truth did not break me. It brought me back to myself. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who that was. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories.